All right, Ms. Amanda.
Thank you. So, this is a workshop that Commissioner Aldridge asked for. It's kind of a continuation of something that we started a couple of years ago. We had begun to have a series of workshops on looking at ways that we could possibly improve the looks of Highway 77 and maybe 390 as well. That's one of the things I want you to think about, is whether you want this to apply to Highway 77 or all the commercial corridors. It's kind of looking at, do you want a unified look? What do you want to see for new development and redevelopment? And we did have a number of workshops, but then it got stalled, and now we have some different board members, and so the commissioner wanted us to bring this back so that we can kind of start from ground zero with you all, and you can start thinking about this again. So we'll begin with what we currently have with regard to aesthetic design standards in the city. Currently, we only really have two places where there are requirements. The first is within the CRA, and the CRA has storefront guidelines. So we have a storefront assistance program. Anybody who would like to apply for the Storefront Assistance Program goes through the CRA board and Ben, and they look at what's being proposed and ensure that it meets certain criteria. And you're probably all familiar with this. This is the CRA Storefront Design Guidelines booklet. That, however, only... Can we go back one slide? This only applies to redevelopment. It does not apply to new development. So when there is new development in the CRA, Ben does look at it, and the CRA board do look at the buildings. However, there are some buildings that perhaps don't meet these three different architectural styles that are proposed in here, and does not address redevelopment that is not requesting storefront assistance. So if somebody has a building, if you know when you come over the bridge into Lynnhaven, on the left-hand side, there is a building that I think used to do like work on cars or something, and it's taken its sweet time about it, but it's currently like being redeveloped. They're kind of putting it all back together again, but it's still just a metal building. It's not gonna, it doesn't look like it's gonna have any architectural features or whatever. And so what we have does not address redevelopment. The old, not so great looking buildings, when people buy them and then want to open them again, if they don't apply for the Storefront Assistance Program, we're not holding them to any standards. So that's something that you might want to think about. Currently, the existing architectural styles within that CRA Storefront Guideline Program, what are the classic styles within Lynnhaven? The old Lynnhaven, think of like the historic Platte and Florida Avenue. So you've got frame vernacular, classic revival, and Spanish Mediterranean revival. And we've got some examples of those on the slides in a moment. This is frame vernacular. So you're probably familiar with this style. When you see this, this is on Florida Avenue. That is one of the styles that they can select from. This is the classic revival. So you've got your flat roof, but it's, you know, kind of brick or brick veneer, certain shaped windows, transom work, that kind of thing. And then this is the Spanish Mediterranean influence, and this is what the old City Hall was. And in fact, the new City Hall is going to have a bit of this influence also. So currently, every project proposed for the Storefront Improvement Assistance Program has to have one of these three architectural styles. These are the same checklist and requirements as for new commercial in the CRA. However, this is not what's required in the corridor overlay, which is the second area that we have design standards. So these only apply in the CRA area. And then when you come out of the CRA on Highway 77, you hit the corridor overlay layer, and I'll go into that in a moment. So something to think about is, as I mentioned earlier, that the ULDC says that new development shall comply with the storefront design guidelines but doesn't address redevelopment or where a building changes hands or uses or where a building has been damaged and is being renovated unless they apply for the storefront assistant program or a development order. So, does the Commission want to give the ordinance more teeth to require that buildings are modified to comply when they're redeveloped? And can the Commission do this, or does it have to go to the CRA board? So that's kind of two questions that I have regarding that. The second area is the corridor overlay layer. The corridor overlay layer picks up kind of 18th Street, Highway 77, excuse me, south to the city borders, and then 390 to the east and to the west. So, the commercial corridors. Commercial properties with frontage on Highway 77 and Highway 390 have requirements, again, for new construction or properties requiring a development order. But again, if the property changes hands or isn't a new building, they can just move in, carry on business, without having to upgrade the building. So again, that's something I want you to think about. Would you like, when someone comes for a new, when a new owner takes over and they want to open a new business or have a new use, would you like us to address this and have them do something to try and, now, you know, but remember that these are the kind of things that people, business owners will probably kick against because they want to open a business with the least cost to them as possible. So does the Commission want the new design standards to be for commercial development citywide or just for Highway 77 and Highway 390? Do you want to prohibit certain materials such as metal buildings not being allowed? Do you want to focus on one style, one architectural style for a cohesive look, as they have done in some other communities for a strong community image, as in, let's say, 30A? Or would you like a mix of styles? Currently in the CRA, there's a mix of 3 different types of styles. You could always include others and have new styles also. If you do decide to focus on a style or particular styles, then we would need to put a pattern book in place. And then finally, would the Commission like to instigate a design review board for proposed new development and redevelopment once the pattern book or design requirements have been decided upon, or want the staff to review and make the decision? So let's just flick through again on this, some of these styles. So this is your frame vernacular. This is CRA. We don't really have these outside of the CRA. This is classic revival. Most of the stores, unless they're new, most of the commercial along Highway 77 is kind of lacking in style, unless it's new and it's been made to look a certain way because of the corridor overlay. And 390, really, you know, there isn't a lot along there, but we're going to see an increase. Once that's widened, there is going to be a lot of commercial coming along 390. So here in your booklet on the table, you can see again some of the examples that we've looked at of classic revival, frame vernacular. Frame vernacular is kind of like your older, more simple style. So you have the examples of the different types there. I won't take too long. You've all got them in front of you to take a look at. And then you have some pages which show under each style the kind of window treatments, the kind of roof treatments, etc., which are allowed. And these are the things that Ben looks at and the CRA board look at for the CRA program. So this is just a little starter for you, and you have the information so that you can look through it, for you to really just start the conversation on what is it you want to see and where do you want to see it. Thank you.
And before, Mayor, if you guys are going to discuss, I would like for Ben to come up and just talk about CRA just a little bit, some of the requirements in that area and clarify anything there, because Amanda really is focusing on the city, but there are some specific designs for CRA as well.
Good morning. I think Amanda already provided an excellent overview over the design requirements. I would like to add to this that the design requirements are required for all commercial development, whether it's a renovation or a new construction. So for example, the Ace Hardware, that was a complete rebuild. I mean, they really gutted the place. Or across the street, the Shelton Service Center, that is still under construction, and they will be adding some hardy boards to the exterior. So what you see right now is just temporary. They're not done with that yet. Are there any questions from the City Commission regarding the design guidelines?
Well, not so much of a question, more of a remark, I guess. But when you're talking about CRA in the historic district, I think there will be people that will have to be grandfathered in. Obviously, we can't go through the historic district and ask them to go change all of their styles, because then that doesn't fit either. The whole purpose here is for the aesthetics to flow and to fit. So if you put Spanish Mediterranean, somewhere where there's buildings from 1920. It's not going to look right either. So, I think with certain places, we will have exceptions as far as CRA is concerned. Mm-hmm. That's not talking about the overall plan, but for CRA.
Yeah. A lot of times, when business owners approach me and they ask about the design guidelines in the CRA, and they realize that their business or their project is affected by that, they're a little bit surprised, and first reaction is, oh, this is going to be more expensive. But it doesn't have to be more expensive necessarily. Mm-hmm. And when I explain to them that we're just trying to coordinate the design efforts here in our community so that everybody is kind of heading in the same direction, then they start to understand. I want to make sure that the business right next to you is not going to paint the storefront in bright purple or in neon green, because that might be maybe a little bit a disadvantage for the overall business appearance. So if everybody is kind of going with the same type of tone, you can still create some visual accents with your signage that makes the storefront a lot more pleasing and pleasant to look at for the customer.
And also, one of the things that we do stress to business owners who are thinking about coming into the CRA is that they get in touch with Ben first before they get so far along in their design, so that we can help them and they not start a design or get it totally designed or start rebuild. We kind of had that right after Hurricane Michael a little bit. I think there was even one on Highway 77. A business owner had already put a lot of money into it, but we were able to help turn that around, give some suggestions, and it worked out. And I think she even got some of the, storefront money that we give to our business owners in that area. So it's very important. I think that's going to be a very important piece of it when people start to, and we're just talking about CRA right now, in that district, and then the commission will decide what you want the rest of the city to look like, Highway 77 in the quarter there.
Couple things. One, I just want to make sure we're not limiting the options as far as materials and that, because as we know, we want to make sure when they build, if they got a new development or they're revamping a building, that they can they got enough options so that the building is strong enough to withstand another hurricane like Hurricane Michael or something like that. I had a second thing and I forgot it already. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, I guess that's what all I got for right now.
One question I do have is in regards to the buildings that are in the packet. I noticed there's style improvement recommendation for each one of those. Is this from Ben in regards to the? Okay. Now, have you been able to follow up with any of these businesses or spoken with them about improvements?
Yes, all these pictures were taken back in 2003 when the CRA was established, and over the years, you may recognize some of the pictures in there. Adams Pharmacy, Mullins Pharmacy. Over the years, these businesses have updated their store frontage, and we have been working with them together on enhancing their store frontage, and I think they really made a difference. In terms of the overall appearance of the commercial corridor, one approach that I would maybe suggest is instead of talking about all these details right now, give us a picture of what you would like to see when it's done. So the next time you're out and about and you're maybe somewhere in Walton County or in another community and you see a commercial corridor that kind of pictures exactly that, this is what I had in mind. This type of light fixtures, this kind of store frontage. Take a picture of it and give it to us, and then we can work our way back and we can tell you exactly what we need to change in order to get to that point.
Yeah, I agree, Ben. You know, I kind of brought this up, or did bring this up a couple of years ago, and kind of got this ball rolling. And I think one of the issues that we can have is you can miss the forest for the trees, so to speak. I think the goal that we're going for, if you go up to, instead of using the beach, let's use North Georgia, okay? You go up to Helen, Georgia, you go up to Blue Ridge, Georgia. You don't have a beach-style business in downtown Blue Ridge, Georgia, because it's a mountain town. Mm-hmm. You know, you have fishing places and restaurants and all this, but they all have the same kind of aesthetic style to them. I agree with you. It's so easy to get bogged down. It's almost like when we had to rebuild our house the day after the hurricane, and you're sitting there looking at everything, and you think, oh my God, where do I even start? So I think we need to take this kind of a chunk at a time, a bite at a time. You know, let's figure out what corridors exactly we want, and then let's vote on it. And then let's figure out the next step, and let's vote on it. You know, instead of trying to put together this huge comprehensive package to where we're just, again, bogged down, let's take steps. And plus we'll get more public engagement that way as well. Because the public's not going to care, excuse me, so much, I don't think, about whether it's 100 feet off the corridor or 200 feet off the corridor. That's not what they're going to care about. They're going to care about if we're trying to restrict people excessively, which we don't want to do that either. I mean, we're a conservative area here. We're free-loving people here. So we don't want to bind people up to where you have to use this light fixture, you're going to be fined. Not going for that goal at all. On the flip side, you do have to have some sort of the same style. Now, we're going naturally that direction anyway. I can already see it because look at our bus stops, the style of that. Look at our city hall, the style of that. You talked about Adams Pharmacy and all these new buildings going up. They're naturally going with that Bay Mediterranean look to it, you know, kind of a Florida style look to it. So the communities naturally go in that direction. I think we just need to have some boundaries set in place as a city to where we keep that momentum going that direction. Exactly. And we don't have, again, a red brick building here and a white stucco building here and then two metal buildings for cars and then another red brick building. You know, that's just a hodgepodge. That doesn't look good at all. And it's not going to benefit the community. As we're growing, I think it's a great idea that we do consider 390 as well, because you're right, growth is inevitable, and it can't go south unless they want to go in the water, so they're going to be going north, and 390 will fill in eventually. So I think we need to get a handle on that and a grip on that before the developments really start hitting. So that being said, you know, let's start with the simple stuff if the board agrees. Let's start with, you know, how far we want off 77 or 390 to go for it to apply. You know, do we want to allow metal buildings if they're not visible, for example? So if you have a nice business, and they have the storefront that looks really nice, but in the back they need some place to put a couple cars or whatnot. Well, as long as it's not a big metal visible building right off the corridor, do we want to allow that? So those are things I think that we should start with. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm all ears, but small bites are better than trying to take this whole thing out at once.
And I guess in deciding which part of the corridor to start with, in regards to how far it is off 77 through 90 Florida Avenue, we might need more of a visual to see where those boundaries are, to see how far that, that actually is. Is it, we could say from 77 to Florida Avenue, but then, how much coverage is that on both sides of 77? We want it to be, equally sided. I think another thing to keep in mind as we look at other communities, for example, like 30A, as I understand it, 30A is not individual cities, they're just small communities. And so they're able to be very restricted because they're really just HOAs. They're not like Rosemary is not its own municipality, and Surfside is not its own municipality, and Alice Beach is not its own municipality. They're all just small subdivisions within Walton County. So although we can look at those areas comparatively, the things that they're able to do can be more restrictive because they're homeowner regulated versus city and government regulated. So we might look more to a city, not necessarily surrounding cities, but cities beyond where we are, just to see what type of vibe we would like to see, again, what type of infrastructure we would like to see in those corridor areas, and each one may have a different theme to it within those corridors. But I do agree we do need to have a sort of a big visionary approach and just decide, sort of get a starting point and go from there. But having the end in view so we'll know actually where we're going as we get started.
Can I just ascertain then that when we're looking at this, we want to look at it without the CRA. We're going to remove the CRA from it and let the CRA just still be its thing and do its thing. So this is going to be for the commercial, just the commercial corridors, just 77 and 390, or for all commercial development in the city?
I personally think that obviously 77 is a given. But going out 390 and 389, where all these apartment complexes are going up, that people are going to come and want to put businesses out there. I think that's one thing that we probably have to focus on even more than 77, because some of these buildings have been here forever, and those that haven't been renovated since the storm, I don't think we'll be renovating anytime real soon. But those areas out there, I really think about, like out towards Bayhaven and all of that. And I think we should have something in place to,
Currently we do for 390. So for 390, that corridor overlay that applies to 77 also applies to 390. So if somebody's putting a commercial business on 390, they're going to have to make it. You know how the newer buildings on 77 have been, the new businesses have been a bit more interesting looking and a bit nicer looking? That does currently apply to 390 as well. However, I don't know. It's not, it deals with, for the amount of building facade that you have, there have to be certain recesses and the type of roof differentiation, so it's not just flat, but it doesn't go into color, it doesn't go into, more detail. Like you said, people are using it and people are creating nice buildings using that. So I don't know whether that is satisfactory for you and you want to apply that to 389 as well, or whether you want to go into a bit more depth with it. And the other thing that I want to point out from what you were saying, Mayor, about how far back we go from the main street, is currently the overlay layer just applies to buildings with frontage on 77 or 390. So it doesn't go back to the buildings behind that may face the next street. It's purely the ones with frontage along the highways.
And I guess in regards to your question to the commission, whether or not we start with CRA or start outside of those limits, it may be easier for us, as Commissioner Aldridge Aldridge mentioned starting simple to maybe exclude the CRA in our initial thoughts, only because there's a hodgepodge of things you have to do when you come to the CRA. Although we're the CRA board too, there's still CRA rules and regulations, so it may be easier for us to start outside of that CRA jurisdiction and just focus on just the city side as we work with staff and ourselves trying to develop that plan.
One of the other things I've noticed too, and this is a prime example, Levon's Lighting, there on Florida Avenue. Now she's got a gorgeous storefront, I think. I'm not offended by it one bit, but she does have a metal building that's attached to the back for, where they can, it's mainly for inventory, but it's also done in a way so that delivery trucks and everything can pull up back and unload and stuff. I just don't have any objection to that as long as it's, hers doesn't stick out like a sore thumb or anything. No, even with Badcock Furniture, I wasn't opposed to them having that storage in the back either, but I think we had them, what did they do, put up stucco or something around it to kind of hide that metal building?
That's in the CRA, so Ben can speak to that.
But I mean, as far as just overall, in general, I think as long as it's done in good taste, the building has to be functional too.
What did they do at Badcock Furniture?
Yeah, when Badcock Furniture renovated the building, they added some architectural details to the exterior of the back part of their building, some light fixtures and some, I think a parapet was added, and also some landscaping. Yep.
So we have the CRA guidelines in place. At a former workshop, I thought we talked about extending the CRA guidelines through different areas. I mean, it would be advantageous, I thought, that just apply the CRA guidelines to different parts of the city that we're concerned with.
The last, where it was left, was that the mayor had directed me to look at Tarpon Springs and 2 other places and get information from those places to bring back to the board, which I did. I collected that information, but we never brought it back to the board. That's kind of where it halted. There was discussion of that. I mean, and that is something that if you wanted to do, you could extend the CRA, but you've got in the CRA guidelines, you've got those 3 types of buildings, which tend to be older styles. It's not really a modern, new look. But, I mean, it's entirely up to you what you all want to do.
Yeah, I'd say we just, like we were discussing, just leave the CRA out for now. I mean, the CRAs can be the redheaded stepchild in the corner for the time being, and we'll focus on the others. Yeah.
So we're talking just 77 and 390 right now?
And 389, maybe?
Yeah, I kind of like what Commissioner Tender said, just kind of blanket everything, because they are going to fill in pockets and lots, and it's not just going to be on the corridors. So I agree with you. If you had a bunch of nice looking buildings, let's say in 10 years on 390, right on the front, but you go half a block back, and all of a sudden people are building stuff that just doesn't go along at all, and that's not a good solution either. So I think we just blanket the city limits.
Commercial.
Commercial, yes,
Yeah.
yes. We're not talking about homes or anything. Just,
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't know if it'd be a good idea to kind of get an idea how many, whenever we define all these requirements we're talking about, how many businesses wouldn't fall in that criteria. Maybe we find out it's not that many. I honestly, I have no idea.
Well, and this is just going to apply to new development or reconstruction. So we're not going to make people go and fix their building as it looks now. They'll be grandfathered in. So the light fixture place, they would be grandfathered in. They're already a business. But if another light company wants to come in 3 blocks down, they would have to abide by it as they put up their building.
But the question I have is, if someone buys that place, do they have to fall under the new guidelines?
I think it would just do new development and reconstruction.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my
That makes
mindset.
sense. Thanks.
And eventually, I mean, over time, those buildings that are older, they're going to go away anyway and be rebuilt to the new modern standards that we put in place.
And if they lose what about if they're damaged by over 50%? then, because usually if something's non-conforming, if it's damaged by over 50%, then it loses its non-conforming status. So things that are in place when you bring the ordinance in are grandfathered in, but then if they are damaged, like if you said if it's new development or redevelopment, reconstruction, or if it's damaged by over 50%, would you say, maybe?
Yeah, because that, I mean, that goes along kind of with FEMA guidelines too. Anything damaged over 50%, you have to bring up the code. So that would make sense. Just,
I definitely think it should be citywide. That's the first thing.
I'm with you on that.
Make it citywide commercial. I think it's going to take years and years, long after we're all long gone.
Yeah, it will.
It's ever,
It will.
you know,
But we can say where
all
the
uniform.
ball going.
As long as we can stop glitter, I'm happy. No glitter on buildings.
I'm with you. We'll put that in there.
Yeah, no glitter.
So, what would you like to do with regard to the next steps of how you would like the buildings to look? Do you want to just take a closer look at the corridor overlay standards that we have right now, that the people who are building new construction right now have to adhere to? And see what you think and see if you want to add to that? Or have you got other ideas of how, I mean, maybe bring some ideas, maybe as Ben said, I think that's a good idea. If you, when you're out and about, if you maybe take photographs or something, if you all have a think about how the new buildings are looking as they're being built now, is that okay? Have a look at the overlay layer, or would you like to have a bit more uniformity in it? And, you know, what kind of looks do you like? And then take photos and maybe bring them back and just have a round table discussion.
Well, for example, like the new restaurants that are going in Checkers and all those there on 77, I don't know how much influence we can have on them. I mean,
They follow the guidelines. They meet the overlay standards.
And then the one I'm trying to think of out there, I think it's not 389, 390. There's a, when you go out there after you cross over 389 on the right-hand side, there's a long row of storefronts there that haven't been refurbished since the storm, I don't think. Do you know where I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
It's just it's a single-story, totally glass front, but it looks like there's 4 or 5 businesses. And
Yeah, I know what you're
I think we need to encompass all that, not just.
Do you
Yeah,
know
I
where?
agree.
No, going out
On 390.
Just past 389
Yes, on the right-hand side. Across from the church.
Oh, I know. Is that in the county or in the city? It's in the county, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, I
it's
think
in and
that's in the
out.
county. There's a lot of county along that strip on both sides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ours is smart looking.
All right. All right, Ben.
Yeah, I think there's a little haircut place there. Yeah. Phase 2, not phase 1.
All right, Mr. Jenke.
Yes.
I just wanted to provide some examples of communities that I think have done a really nice job in updating, improving their downtown area. And you don't have to go in person to that community. You can just go and online and click on Google Maps Street View and kind of get an idea how this community looks like. So for example, Port St. Joe has done a really nice job over the last couple of years of Reed Avenue in the downtown area. Looks really nice. Foley, Alabama is another one. It's very nice. And Daphne, Alabama, right next to it. And they all have different levels of restrictions. So let's say if you look at Rosemary Beach, there are a lot of restrictions, design restrictions. So that's kind of like the one extreme, the one side of the spectrum. And then the other side of the spectrum is maybe St. Andrews, Port St. Joe. There you can see some changes there, but not a lot. Monticello, just north of Tallahassee, is another one, or northeast of Tallahassee. And then maybe Thomasville, Georgia, although that city is a little bit bigger than Lynnhaven. So, but just wanted to give you guys some ideas to if you want to go online and look for some examples.
Yeah, I think. And I agree with you, Ben. They are wonderful. Port St. Joe, Thomasville. Thomasville is one of my favourite places. It's beautiful, but they are old buildings. That's like our CRA area again. They are old, established buildings that have been refurbished, but they have the bones. They have the old kind of antique, beautiful brick, stone. They have all that. We only have that in the CRA, and so we can't really require people to build that.
Yeah, I mean, those places went with the style of the area.
Right.
I mean, that's what they did, and that's what we're doing. I mean, even look at our schools, North Bayhaven, for example. It's built with that bay look to it.
I think they called it a cracker style. Did they used to call that the cracker? I think it's called like the cracker style. I think that's what they called it. You know, Vicky, I know you were talking about at one point the fire station in Callaway. And when they went out to look to decide how they wanted their fire station to look, they went to the one that was over in Walton, South Walton or somewhere. And I think that style of building is kind of known as like the cracker style building, and that is what seems to be happening in this area.
It's
and
naturally
fits.
occurring.
Yeah, and actually out at our bayou as well. Some of those buildings out there, the preserve out there, similar kind of style buildings.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could decide that is kind of the look that you want to go for citywide with commercial.
And again, I think you see it. I mean, it's occurring naturally. We just want to pull it all together. You know what I mean? It's happening anyway. This style is just like it does in South Georgia and North Georgia. They have their styles that fits, but we have to make sure that, again, that my goal is to make sure that trend continues and grows, and that we don't have Johnny Appleseed show up all of a sudden and build something that just completely doesn't look like anything else in Lynnhaven. You know?
So would you like for me to put together something that would kind of apply to that style of building, the kind of things that, as far as the roof lines, and maybe do some research, and Ben might even have some information that could help, and put something together and bring that back to you, kind of a building look and characteristics?
I think also what we also need to do is, I think Commissioner Aldridge said, and Ben as well, is that you can do a Google map or Google Street, and we really need to see, photos don't do those areas justice. You actually have to have an interactive look at some of those places and be able to say, yeah, that works within this area, that doesn't work within this area. So when you go and you start looking at some of these areas, if you will, send me a link. Then we can put together a PowerPoint presentation that we can click on that link and say, here's downtown Monticello. This is, what do you like about that? And while you're telling us, we take notes. And then the next one, whatever city that may be, we take notes. And then we pare it down to those things that all have in common to come up with the plan. Because I think it's very difficult when you look at photos, you can just kind of see some of the structural drawing of that, but you really want something that's interactive, that not only you can see, but our residents can see and be able to put something together. So that would be helpful if you would just send me the link, and then we can put together a PowerPoint presentation from there, and it can be interactive.
Would it be a violation of sunshine if we all got in a van and went somewhere together, as long as we didn't talk to each other?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Can we not go on like a tour, like choose a few places and everybody go?
Well, we don't have to talk to each other though. We can just like ride silently the whole way and not say anything.
But you still have to vote on it at some point.
I do like the recommendation city manager is giving us, and so I think that's something that we can also do is even as we're riding around through other cities, may see something on the beach, may see something in Panama City, to send those to her and staff. Also, Amanda, I guess not just with that particular style, could you maybe identify for us, maybe not today, but what are the more common styles that are being contemporary in our area now?
Yes.
For new development and redevelopment.
Right, the new
Yes.
development and redevelopment. Because I know
Yes.
we have this style, but are there other styles that are also being more prominent
Yes, sir.
as we're redeveloping? And then it gives us, as we have 2 or 3 options in the CRA, then that may give us 2 or 3 options in addition to what we're recommending to city manager to look at for what we would like to see in our area. And it may be that we have 2 or 3 options for those individuals to choose from versus just one particular style. Or it might be this style in this area, this style in this area, and this style in this area, sort of similar to what the CRA does, but not necessarily duplicating
Yes.
that exact language, but taking that and applying
Different
that.
sections of the city have different styles. I think Montgomery, Alabama have done some nice things as well. So
Off of Taylor Road, yeah.
What, sorry?
Off of Taylor Road.
yeah,
Down.
yeah, I thought they had been doing some good things up there in Montgomery. So yeah.
And
With the styles, I do envision, because you were asking, do we want to go with 1 style, 2 styles, 3 styles? I do think, if this makes sense, macro-wise, more restrictive. Micro-wise, less restrictive. So in other words, the overall style, yes, I think we should have 1, for example. So yeah, you have the choice of this one feel, style, whatever. But then from there on down, we're more hands-off. You know what I mean? So as long as they have the overall style and aesthetic, I don't really care so much about what light fixture they pick,
Okay.
or, you know, the small thing, what color the door is, or whatever. None of that matters to me. It's just the overall vibe.
You
of
don't
the
like the idea of, because some places have done that. In fact, one of the places that I had to research, that the mayor wanted researching, had 4 different areas to the city. And each area had its own kind of feel.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, as long as that one area has that one style.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking that. And it would also maybe even create different districts for our area. Like right now, we just have the historical district, which has the historical vibe. But once we get outside of the historical district, then we're just in Lynnhaven versus can 390 have a particular style and it be this type of district, and can 77 have a particular style and this type of district.
I like that.
You know, and so then that way we're, developing those own characters for each one of those.
Because we're going to grow, and I mean, as 390 widens and we get more business coming in, we've got what we have now with commercial, but in the future, we're going to have a lot more commercial.
I think we also have to be very cognizant of the cost factor
That's right.
in design, because people who are buying into new businesses and want to, refurbish, we've got to consider them
That's right.
in a major way, I think.
I think maybe what Commissioner Aldridge was saying would help with that if we had like macro kind of, okay, this is the style we want, but then let them choose their materials and their light fixtures and all their details, so that some might go more expensive and some could go less expensive.
And I think it's important that we go citywide. For example, something we're voting on today, the Thai restaurant, that's not facing 77, I don't believe. So that
in the CRA.
restaurant in itself is going to be affected.
That's in the CRA.
Yeah. Oh,
So that
yeah,
wouldn't
that's
be-
true. That wouldn't matter. Okay.
I think, Mayor, if you don't mind, the next step would be for Amanda, myself, and Ben to get together, and with your input of whatever links you send us, and we may even have some links, and kind of divide it in, okay, here's new development, here is, citywide, and then here's this district this may work here, here over in 390, this may work here, just some suggestions, and then you can narrow it down. And I do like the idea of just giving examples of what we would like for it to look like, but you don't have to go spend that kind of money to get that look. So if you will give us, maybe come back in March, we have a really good presentation that we can give to you, and that will get us started and give us some direction.
So we'd like to do that at the first commission meeting in March.
I think that's that'll work. Or another workshop, first commission meeting or workshop?
Thinking another workshop.
Yeah, okay. Workshop.
Would
Okay.
y'all like to do, well, and I guess the question is, we want a morning workshop or an afternoon workshop? So we're going to do the next workshop prior to commission meeting, first commission meeting in March. All right, any additional questions, comments for staff? All right, well, thank you, Commissioner Aldridge, for bringing this to us or bringing it back to us and reemphasizing it. Thank you to City Manager and staff for going out and doing your homework and bringing it to us to give us a lot more things to think about now. So look forward to sending you those pictures and links and following up with you in March to see where we are in our progress. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.